Ever get that feeling like you just need to be in control? You know, like having the power to make your own choices, even if they're small ones.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like picking what to have for dinner or what to wear.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
It's amazing how much those choices, even the little ones, affect how we feel. Well, today we're going to do a deep dive into a study from way back in 1976.
Okay.
It looks at just how powerful choice can be, especially as we get older.
Sounds interesting.
It's a classic psychology experiment I think you'll find pretty thought-provoking.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear about it.
So it all takes place in a nursing home,
Okay.
which is unfortunately a setting where, you don't always have a ton of personal control.
Right. You're kind of at the mercy of other people's decisions a lot of the time.
Exactly. And the researchers, Langer and Rodin,
Yeah.
they wanted to find out if increasing personal choice and responsibility for these residents could actually make a difference in their lives.
Interesting.
Like, could it actually improve how they felt and how they functioned?
Yeah.
So they set up their experiment at Arden House in Connecticut,
Okay.
which was a pretty well-respected facility known for providing really good care.
Gotcha.
So how'd they do it? Did they, give residents control over the menu or something?
Well, it was a little more nuanced than that.
Okay.
They chose 2 floors in the nursing home with residents who were pretty similar in terms of their health and their backgrounds.
Okay.
And the main thing they changed was the way the staff talked to the residents on each floor.
So it's about how things are communicated, not just the choices themselves.
Exactly. On the 4th floor, they called it the increased responsibility group.
Got it.
And they really emphasized that the residents were in charge.
Okay.
So, they let them choose how they wanted the rooms to be arranged.
Nice.
They could pick out their own plants to take care of.
I like that.
And they even got to decide which night they wanted to go to movie night.
Ah, that's cool.
It was all about giving them back a sense of autonomy, like their opinions and preferences really mattered.
I love that. It's like giving them back a sense of ownership over their own lives.
Exactly.
Well, what about the other floor?
Right. So on the 2nd floor, they just stuck with the standard level of care.
Okay.
The staff was super nice and caring,
Of course.
but they really emphasized their role in making sure the residents were comfortable and happy.
So they were making the choices for the residents, basically.
Yeah, and, I get it. It was all well-intentioned, but it created a very different dynamic.
Yeah, almost like 2 parallel universes within the same building.
Right. And you wouldn't think those small changes in how they talk to the residents would make a huge difference. But,
What?
well, let's just say the results were pretty surprising.
Okay, now I'm really curious.
Yeah, you won't believe what happened next.
I'm all ears.
These tiny changes in messaging had a big, and I mean big, impact on the residents.
All right, well, now I got to know, what kind of impact are we talking about here?
Oh, we'll get to that right after the break.
Stay with us. All right, so spill the beans. What kind of impact did these small changes have?
Well, get this. Just 3 weeks after they made these changes,
Okay.
the residents on the 4th floor, the increased responsibility group,
Yeah.
they were reporting feeling way happier, like significantly happier.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm not talking about a tiny little mood boost here.
Okay.
They actually showed a 20% increase in their happiness scores.
Whoa, 20%. That's huge. How did they even measure that?
They use these standardized questionnaires that psychologists use to assess things like mood and well-being.
Okay.
And compared to the control group on the 2nd floor, that's a huge jump.
Wow, so it wasn't just like they were saying they felt happier, it was actually measurable.
Exactly. And it wasn't just self-reported either.
What do you mean?
The nurses who were taking care of the residents, they had no idea about the study.
Oh.
They didn't know which residents were in which group or anything.
Oh, interesting.
But they noticed a huge difference, too.
Like, they rated a whopping 93% of the residents on the 4th floor
Wow.
as showing overall improvement,
That's incredible.
compared to only 21% on the 2nd floor.
So even the people who were around these residents every day, who weren't even part of the experiment, could see that something had changed.
Absolutely. It's like their whole demeanor shifted.
I wonder what that must have been like to witness.
Yeah, it must have been pretty amazing.
So we're talking about happier residents. Right. What else?
It went way beyond just their mood, though.
Okay.
The researchers, they looked at how the residents were behaving, too.
Hmm.
And the results there, well, they were pretty fascinating.
Okay, give me an example.
Okay, so remember how residents on the 4th floor could choose which night they wanted to go to movie night?
Yeah.
Way more of them actually ended up going.
That makes sense.
Right. Like if you're feeling more energized and positive and engaged, you're probably more likely to participate in activities.
Totally. I know when I'm feeling down, the last thing I want to do is go out and do something. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's this one detail that's kind of funny, but also really telling.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So they had this jelly bean guessing contest.
What? Like how many jelly beans in a jar?
Exactly. 10 residents from the 4th floor participated.
Okay.
But only one from the 2nd floor.
Really? That's kind of wild when you think about it.
It is. Like, it's not like winning that jelly bean contest was going to change anyone's life.
Right.
But it shows you something about their mindset.
Yeah, it's like that little spark of motivation and playfulness was missing for a lot of the residents on the 2nd floor.
Exactly. It really highlights that intrinsic desire we have to participate, to be involved when we feel like we have a say in things.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so this is all great, right? Happier residents, more engaged residents, but this was only after 3 weeks, right?
Right. That's just the short-term stuff.
So what happened in the long run? Did these changes stick around?
This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
So they followed up with the residents after 18 months.
Wow, a year and a half later.
Yeah, and the results were pretty remarkable.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Doctors and nurses, they continued to rate the health of the 4th floor residents as way better than those on the 2nd floor.
So it wasn't just like a temporary mood boost. There were lasting changes in their well-being.
Precisely. Those initial changes, they seem to have a ripple effect over time.
So that's amazing. But I gotta ask, was there anything that surprised the researchers?
Oh, yeah. Big time. Here's the most mind-blowing finding. The mortality rate on the 4th floor.
Okay.
It was half that of the 2nd floor.
Wait, are you serious?
Dead serious. Only 15% of the residents in the increased responsibility group passed away during those 18 months.
Wow.
Compared to 30% in the other group.
That's a massive difference.
It really is. It's a powerful testament to the impact of choice on our longevity, like how long we live.
I mean, it makes you wonder, why? Why would having more control over your life lead to a longer lifespan?
Right. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Like, what's the connection there?
Yeah. Did the study look into that at all?
Well, they didn't have a definitive answer.
Okay.
But there are some pretty compelling theories out there.
Like what?
Well, for one, there's the whole stress thing, right?
Okay.
When we feel like we're in control, we're less likely to experience all the negative effects of stress.
Like stress eating or being short-tempered.
Those are definitely part of it.
Okay.
But stress can also really mess with our physical health, you know?
Oh, for sure. It's like when you're facing a tough situation and you feel totally powerless, it can be completely overwhelming.
Exactly. But when you feel like you have some agency, like you can actually do something about it, it's less likely to take such a toll on you.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then there's the whole engagement piece, too.
What do you mean?
Well, when we feel a sense of purpose, like our choices actually matter.
Yeah.
We're more likely to be active, to connect with people, to pursue things we enjoy.
That's true.
All of those things, they contribute to a healthier and potentially longer life.
So it's not just about avoiding the negative stuff. It's about actually embracing the positive aspects of life when we feel empowered.
Exactly. And this isn't just relevant to people in nursing homes or older folks, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. This applies to everyone, doesn't it?
Totally. Think about times in your own life when you felt stuck.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe at work or in a relationship, or even just facing a giant to-do list.
Don't remind me.
But think about how different those situations feel when you have some choices, even small ones.
Yeah, it can make a world of difference. It's like night and day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It can completely change how you cope and how motivated you feel to tackle those challenges.
This study is really making me think about all the ways we can empower ourselves and others, even in everyday situations.
That's the beauty of it. It's not some abstract concept. It's something we can all put into practice.
You know what, though? It makes me wonder, is there ever a point where having too much choice becomes a bad thing?
Oh, you're definitely onto something there. That's a great question.
I mean, sometimes I feel like I have so many options, it's almost paralyzing.
That's really interesting. We should dive into that more after the break.
Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.
It's kind of like that saying too much of a good thing can be a bad thing.
Right. And it turns out there's actually research to back that up.
Really?
Yeah, there's a study by Langer and Rodin back in 2000.
Okay.
And they looked into this whole idea of choice overload.
Choice overload, huh?
Yeah. Basically, they found that if you give people too many options, it can actually make them less likely to make a choice at all.
So, like, more choices don't always lead to better decisions.
Exactly. In fact, in one of their experiments,
Okay.
they found that shoppers were way more likely to buy gourmet jam when they had 6 choices to pick from compared to when they had 24 different kinds of jam.
Whoa, that's kind of counterintuitive.
I know, right? Like, you'd think having more options would be better.
Yeah, for sure.
But it turns out our brains can only handle so much. So how do we know how much choice is the right amount? Is there like a magic number?
Well, it's not really about finding a specific number.
Okay.
It's more about recognizing that there's this sweet spot between giving people enough choices to feel empowered, but not so many that they get overwhelmed and just freeze up.
So it's like finding that Goldilocks zone of choice, not too much, not too little, but just right?
Exactly. You nailed it. And this is something we should be thinking about in all areas of our lives, not just when we're picking out jam at the grocery store.
Oh, for sure. This makes me think about all those times I spend scrolling through streaming services trying to find something to watch.
Oh, yeah? Tell me about it.
There are just so many options. I end up spending an hour browsing, and then I just give up and watch nothing.
Yeah. I've been there, too. It's classic choice overload in action.
It's like our brains just get overloaded, and then we can't make a decision.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, we often end up feeling less satisfied, even though we have all these choices.
It's like the paradox of choice, right? More choices, less happiness.
Right. And that's why it's so important to be mindful of this whole choice thing, both for ourselves and for the people around us.
So what can we do about it? How can we apply this knowledge to our everyday lives?
Well, I think the first step is just to be aware of it, right? To recognize that choice overload is a real thing.
Okay.
And then, maybe start thinking about ways to simplify things, to create environments where we have enough choices to feel good.
Yeah.
But not so many that we get bogged down.
So like being intentional about the choices we offer, whether it's to our kids or colleagues or even just to ourselves.
Exactly. Like maybe instead of giving your kid 10 different outfit options, you narrow it down to 3.
That actually makes a lot of sense. I'm definitely guilty of giving my kids too many choices sometimes.
And the same thing goes for like work projects.
Okay.
Maybe instead of brainstorming 100 different ideas, you focus on coming up with 5 really solid ones.
Yeah, it's about quality over quantity.
Exactly. And I think it's also important to remember that even small choices can make a big difference.
So it's not just about the big life decisions, it's about all the little choices we make throughout the day.
Totally. Like letting your partner choose what music to listen to on a road trip, or letting your coworker decide what time to schedule a meeting.
It's about showing them that their opinions and preferences matter.
Exactly. And that can go a long way in creating a more positive and empowering environment.
This has been such an interesting conversation, this whole idea of choice and how it affects our well-being. It's really got me thinking.
Me too. And I think it's a conversation worth continuing,
Yeah, for sure. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the power of choice to the dangers of choice overload.
It's a complex topic, but I think the key takeaway is this. Choice matters.
And the way we approach choice, both in our own lives and in the lives of others, can have a profound impact on our well-being and our overall happiness.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So, to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to be mindful of the choices you make and the choices you offer to others.
And remember, it's all about finding that sweet spot, that balance between autonomy and simplicity.
And that wraps up another deep dive. Thanks for joining us today, folks.